I'm really looking forward to this episode of Storytellers as we're sitting down with somebody a little different today. Richard Beland is a photography professor as well as a music photographer. Worked with some legendary acts, been doing it for years, and I think he's going to have a really unique insight on what it takes to be successful and how he got to where he's got today. Richard, thank you very much for being here today.
Thanks for having me, Matt.
Let's start these like we do all of them. Tell us your story. Tell us kind of how you got to where you're at here today and all the exciting things in between.
Oh, brother, that's a pretty wide open question. I think if I think back the first time that I had any interest in photography, I grew up in Brights Grove, and I was very close to the creek there. And I remember the creek flooded, and it went all over waterworks in the lakeshore, the corner there. And there was this massive flood, so I asked my mother if I could use her camera and go out and photograph it. So I've always had this in me to kind of document things.
How old were you when you kind of started there?
Geez, that would have been public school, so maybe grade 6, 7, something like that. The real passion for doing music photography probably came from, you know, maybe early high school, maybe even late public school, but looking at old magazines, like there used to be this magazine called Cream magazine, and I think they were based in Detroit, Hit Parade or Rolling Stone. I'd look in there and I'd be like, because I love rock and roll, and I thought, who is doing these photographs? That seems like a cool job. And then I've always been totally obsessed with rock and roll. What they call classic rock now. So Pink Floyd and Led Zeppelin.
The good stuff.
AC/DC, Black Sabbath, all that stuff, right? And I just kind of went through the motions. I went to college and I studied mechanical engineering first.
Where did you go to college?
Fanshawe College.
Okay, just London.
So I went into mechanical engineering because, like every kid that grows up around here, I thought, oh, I'm someday going to work in the plants in the Chemical Valley. And my dad worked in the plants. But the one thing about my dad was he was a very hard worker, but he would always come home and he'd be so dirty.
Okay.
I don't want to go there and come home dirty. I'm not really into getting dirty, right? But I want to work. So, you know, my dad's like, well, you know, they hire draftsmen and that kind of thing. So when I went to school after high school, I studied mechanical engineering. And then I graduated, so I have my diploma in mechanical engineering. I did that for over 3 years. And I starting looking for work. I was still pretty young, maybe 21 at that time. I moved to Toronto, and then I just realized this isn't what I want to do. I don't want to work as a draftsman. I don't want to work as a mechanical engineer. And I ended up working in the sandblasting place. And I was living in one of these old motels on Lakeshore in Toronto. They're gone now. They built condos there. And it was kind of a cool place to live, but it was, you know, you come home from sandblasting in the sub-zero weather, and it just was a tiny bit depressing. And then the real big point came, I was out on a phone booth, again, before cell phones, and I called up one of my buddies, and I was kind of, you know, complaining about how terrible this job was. And he's like, why don't you go back to school, study photography? It's what you always love to do. And that's what I did.
So how old were you when you made that?
That decision would have been made around 21.
Okay.
Maybe 22. And then there's a bit of a side story. Too. So I went into school. I started studying photography, and then a strike came. Very similar to the one we had last year. So I had this really interesting perspective about the strike last year because I dealt with the strike in the college system as a student and as a faculty member.
I dealt with one too when I was in school.
Oh. What year?
I graduated in 06, so that year prior to.
Okay.
I was at Fanshawe, and it was like a month long, the whole thing.
Oh, yeah, I'm older than you, so I'm talking about 1989.
Okay, I was barely born,
Oh, well, I just turned 50 this year.
Cool.
So anyway, the strike came, and we were about 5 weeks into the strike, and I remember going in, it was either my dean or my coordinator, and I just went in there as a young, kind of cavalier student, and I said, the strike is no good for me. I'm going to withdraw. They tried to talk me out of it, and I just left. I said, no, it's not something I want to deal with. And I actually picked up everything. I got 2 camera bodies. I bought about 100 rolls of film, and I went to Europe with an open-end plane ticket.
Cool.
I bought a van, and I lived in the van for 6 months.
No doubt.
Yeah, a true story. I never even stayed at a hotel or nothing.
Whereabouts in Europe did you end up?
Everywhere.
Everywhere.
I drove over 40,000 kilometers. I just lived in this van, and I kind of taught myself photography the best I could at that time. Learned from my mistakes. You know, shooting on film is a little more difficult. Back then, like, you know, I drove the entire perimeter of Scotland. I went all along the fishing roads. I bet you I photographed every single castle in Scotland.
Okay, so more like architectural or landscape or anything and everything.
Yeah, just travel.
Cool.
The trip ended because I was cutting through Yugoslavia on my way to Greece. I wanted to go to Greece, and I got in a car accident. And this was about 6 months in, and I rode off the van. It was a terrible accident. And so I packed it up and came home. But the good thing that came out of all that was I learned a lot of life lessons, and I was ready to go back to school. So I went back to photography, and I was young, but I was keen, and I was motivated, and I aced it. I did really well. I won a bunch of awards, and I went for 3 years. It was a 3-year program back then. And then I graduated, I think it was 1994.
Cool.
And I was ready. It was like I was shot out of a cannon. I went right from London. Within weeks, I'd moved to Toronto, and then all I did was shoot, because I was really keen.
Yeah. How'd you get your foot in the door in the rock and roll side of things then?
Well, I guess it goes back to being keen again. Like, I wanted to work as a photographer, and I wanted to work in the music industry. About year 2 at Fanshawe, I started shooting for the school newspaper. Okay. But I made this deal with the school newspaper. I didn't want to do lifestyle. I didn't want to do sports. I only wanted to do the bands that played at the pub. Cool. Back then, the bands that were playing were like the Tea Party, Sloan, the Headstones, Junk House, every band that's kind of bigger Canadian bands now. I'm Mother Earth, they were starting out then. So I kind of had a good start on it. But I would go to the editor, and again, this is before the internet or anything. I said, can't we go shoot bigger gigs, maybe stuff in Toronto? And he said to me, well, if you do all the legwork, I'll support it. I said, okay. One of the first things I ever photographed was ZZ Top at Maple Leaf Gardens. Pink Floyd had reformed at that point, and they went. They played at the CNE. I went and shot that. Yeah, so it all went. I started in the school at Fanshawe. There was a woman in my class. Her name's Paula Tizard, amazing photographer, still to this day. Someone I really look up to, incredible photographer. Anyway, she saw me printing some of my rock and roll stuff. I was in year 2. She was in year 3. She said, "You should go talk to my brother. He's a photo editor at this magazine in Toronto, and his name is Ken. I think it was Canadian Musician or something." Cool. Anyway, I went to visit him. He saw my work, gave me a couple chances. One of the great chances he gave me was I shot Nirvana. He called me up. I was still in school. He said, "Nirvana's playing tomorrow night." And so I'm like, yes, definitely. So I went and shot Nirvana the next night, and that would be, within 6 months of Kurt dying. That was one of my big breaks anyway. Oh, yeah. And then that following summer, and Ken said, "You should go check out this agency that we work with in London, England, because maybe they'll give you some work." So I went to the agency. Turns out the photo editor there is Canadian, and she said, "Oh, I can give you a bunch of shows." Well, she gave me a lot of shows. I went and shot U2 in Stuttgart, Madrid, Rotterdam. This was on the Zoo TV tour, so it was all very exciting stuff.
And you're still in your 20s when this is happening too?
Yeah.
Wow.
I shot a lot that summer. I went back to school, finished my last year, moved to Toronto. So I already had this big portfolio built. And then I shot everything. It didn't matter if I was at the Horseshoe, Lee's Palace, or Maple Leaf Gardens. Air Canada Centre wasn't open at that time. And it made me a better photographer. And I got to know people in the industry, because eventually they'd be like, "Hey, it's that guy." It's like, and then it's Richard. And then I got to know people based on the fact that I wanted to work. Maybe this is 94, 95 now. And I had a cover shoot with Gord Downey. I did the shoot. Management called me and said, "Can you come and show us the other shots that the magazine aren't using, because we might buy them off you." I didn't think I had done that good of a job. I'm kind of hard on myself. Anyway, they went through it and they're like, "There's the shot." And it's probably one of the more well-known shots of Gord. It's the one where he's pulling down the toque. Cool. It's got the TTH sign on it. It looks like the NHL logo. So I brought all these live photographs, and they said, "You know what? We haven't hired a photographer for the tour. Oh, wow. Would you be interested in doing some tour photography of the Tragically Hip?" And so I was trying to play cool. Okay.
I guess,
But inside,
check my schedule,
So I did a whole bunch of shows on that tour, on the Phantom Power tour. And it was during the winter. So I remember it was very exciting, because I really felt Canadian. I can still hear that crunch of the snow underneath my feet up in Sudbury, and driving across. And I could tell you a dozen stories like that, but everything just kept perpetuating itself. And the fact that I was always keen, and Rob Baker and I, the guitar player in the band, sat down and we're talking, and he asked if I'd be interested in doing album photography for them. And then Gord Downey sent me some lyrics, and then we kind of started coming up with this idea. Awesome. And we did the album photography for In Violet Light. Wow. And then I did the publicity for the next album, which would be In Between Evolution, and it just, I've shot the hip now around 150 times in concert.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Were you there for the last show then?
Yeah, I was in Kingston for the last show. I shot 9 shows on the last tour.
Cool. So how important are relationships, I guess, along your journey? It sounds like that's pretty well everything, right?
Yeah.
From starting the relationship and getting, you know, having that piss and vinegar to get out there when you're young, building those relationships and nurturing them through the lifetime, really, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
You know, you don't always get to build relationships. You know, like I've shot U2 and the Rolling Stones and stuff like that, but
more so with the magazines and the
Yeah.
editors and that, I guess the artist is kind of that perk that would lead to it, right?
yes.
Yeah.
And so the Canadian bands, we live in Canada,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
the door's kind of open because
Yeah.
I'm Canadian, they're more local.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
But building relationships is important. I think being a fan, but not being too much of a fan.
Yeah.
You know, these guys that are asking for selfies and bugging people for autographs and stuff like
Yeah.
that. Even when you want it, it's almost better to not.
Yeah.
People at the management record label bands, they want to know that you're going to go in there and just be the person that's with the camera.
Exactly.
Not the person that's
You're there to
looking
do a
for the
job, right?
selfie.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Building relationships, certainly. Building trust.
Yeah.
Producing.
And executing, yeah.
Yeah, doing, you got to
Yeah.
do, your work has to be consistent.
Yeah.
You can't, once you're in the industry, I think, probably as any type of photographer, highs and lows are going to happen, but you really got to eliminate those lows. When there's a big budget, there's no room for any sort of failure.
Yeah.
You know, like there's lots of times where I'm working with big budgets.
Yeah.
You always have to produce. So
Yeah.
consistency is important.
Cool.
And consistency comes from experience.
Yeah.
I've been shooting for over 30 years.
Yeah.
Professionally for about 25 years, but I'm still doing photography all the time. I still do 2, 3, 4 shoots a week.
So what brought you to Sarnia to the profession you're in now?
That's a funny one too. I was actually on the phone setting up another shoot. Phone call was coming through. I looked at it. It was Lambton College, but I couldn't answer because I was on another business call. But I just quickly looked and I thought, the one thing that came to my mind was I thought, oh man, I hope they don't want me to teach. And so I listened to the voicemail later on. It was a friend of mine that works here. He said, you should call me. I think I have this cool opportunity. So I called him up and he said, I was in a meeting the other day and they're thinking about building a photography program at Lambton College. They want to know if we knew anybody that might be interested. Why don't you come and have an interview? And I walked out of there going, wow, this is an amazing opportunity.
Yeah.
Because if you think about it, probably every college in North America has a photography program.
Yeah.
Where are you going to get this opportunity again? So I thought, this is an opportunity I really have to take because that's something that's kind of part of my legacy in a way. And it's something I've never done. I've done a lot, but I've never done this. The opportunity to have a full-time job with benefits, it seemed like the right dad thing to do.
Yeah, a little more stable than running around with fans.
But photography's always done well for me. It's not like I needed to do this for employment.
Yeah.
But I don't have benefits as a freelance photographer.
Yeah.
So now I'm the coordinator.
Cool.
I'm one of the instructors. We have a team now. And that's what got me here.
Cool.
And now I live here and it's kind of gone full circle.
Yeah.
And I live out in Kamlaki and, you know, I got a pond across the street. The lake's a 3-4 minute walk. And it's just like when I was a kid growing up in Brights Grove.
That's great.
My kids swim every day. And
Yeah.
I miss Toronto, but I'm happy to be back.
Yeah. So do you still get a chance to do some of the band photography now?
Oh yeah. So I did 5 shoots this week.
Wow.
I was out there shooting in the driving rain. I was drenched to the bone. I'm 50 years old, and I go, did I not make it past this? But I wanted the shot, you know. Yeah, I still shoot. I still love it. Even shooting concerts, I'm up around almost 4,000 concerts.
Wow.
Now. But I'm still just as excited.
Yeah.
When the lights go down, it doesn't matter who's playing, if I'm a fan or not.
Yeah.
The fact that I'm in there shooting concerts.
You're doing what you love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's still like this, but when I grew up in Brights Grove, it was before MTV, before all the music channels, so you really only had the radio.
Yeah.
Back then it was WRIF, WLLZ. I'd listen to those stations and I was obsessed, absolutely obsessed with rock and roll.
Yeah.
My first concert was in 1983. I saw Aerosmith. I think my second concert, maybe a month later, was Rush. My third concert was Robert Plant. So it was kind of ingrained in me to just love rock and roll.
Yeah.
So I wanted a job in rock and roll.
Yeah.
I had this love of photography as well.
That's awesome.
So to be able to put the two of them together, it was kind of the perfect marriage.
Exactly.
Right?
And you hear so many stories of the guys like you that start down the path of, you know, where their dads are, where the stability is, of going to school to get into the plants. That's where you want to go, right? And very few actually have the nerve, let's call it, to do what they love. So that's, I definitely commend you for that, for actually, you know, pursuing it and killing it in that industry, it sounds like.
Well, I owe part of that to my dad as well. He was the one, like, he grew up in Timmins, you know. I think they didn't have the opportunities that we had.
Yeah.
His father died when he was really young, so he probably didn't even finish high school. He probably didn't even finish public school, who knows. So he had to bring home money to help pay for the family or whatever. But he always said, go to school, go back to school, post-secondary education, go back, learn, do what you need to do. So he always encouraged me to go back to school anyway.
Cool. How did the family take it with you changing directions so drastically and going the photography route? Because obviously that's not really, even back then, probably wasn't the norm at all to kind of take the risk and go into something totally different than the stable life, let's call it.
I didn't have any pushback on
That's
that.
good.
I think following your passion is something that kind of runs in the Beland blood, maybe. Parents ask me that question all the time.
Yeah.
You know, is my child going to be able to make money from working as a photographer, or how are they going to make money? I tell them, if your child is good and they produce consistent work and they're motivated.
Exactly.
Because you can get straight A's in this class for 2 years, but if you go home and sit on the couch, there's no work. People aren't just going to, how are they going to know about you? You got to go out there and find it. It's not like I was making a ton of money right off the start. I spent a lot of, I call them my craft dinner years in the beginning. So I certainly lived poverty level in the beginning.
You did what you had to do, right?
Yeah. But the thing was, I was, as I was saying before, I was keen on photographing. So anybody who would let me shoot, I was out there shooting. And I was highly motivated. And that's what I try and tell the students. Whatever it is that you love to shoot, go shoot it. But you got to shoot all the time. Sidney Crosby, amazing hockey player. But do you think he sits in the summertime and does nothing? You have to use your camera all the time. And you have to be good at it. And you need to be able to pick up your camera and make a great photograph without thinking about it. It needs to be all second nature and problem solving. And you can learn for 2 years, which I think a formal education is really important, but it's not enough. You got to work all the time.
No doubt,
All these guys are in the NHL. They don't sit still.
Exactly. What motivates you? What keeps you going?
I think what motivated me originally was some sort of success. And I love music. I love rock and roll.
Awesome.
I like all music.
You
know, I photographed every genre of music you can name, but I love rock and roll. So it wasn't important for me to meet Jimmy Page and Robert Plant, although I have. But it was important for me to get in there and photograph them as much as I can. And then seeing the photographs. The shoot I did the other day, I'm working on it at my office right now, that motivates me. It's like it's like opening up a Christmas present. Like, oh, wow, this is what I wanted. Santa, you're awesome. You know, that motivates me. But now my kids motivate me, you know. It's not like money motivates me, but making a living from photography motivates me. Yeah, I like to get paid for it. But if I can pay my bills through photography, that's motivation.
That's perfect. Do you still get as excited to do maybe some of these smaller bands as you do the Slash and the Jimmy Page out there?
Yeah. You know, the shoot I did on the weekend, it's the head of security at Fallsview Casino. We're friends, but he's not a rock star. He's a rock star because he's super cool. I treated it just like any other show. You just have a true passion for what you do. I can see it kind of just spills out of you. It's awesome. I love creating.
You
know, I keep journals. I've kept a journal since I was 16. I have stacks of books that I write in. Nowadays I use a lot of Siri. I just talk into it and then I print it off later. But I like creating. I like producing. If I don't have any sort of production at bedtime, I wonder what I did with my day.
So it's the process more so than just
I don't know what it is, but I'm not very good. Lazy isn't a word in my vocabulary. I don't chill out very well. I'm not the guy that'll go sit on the beach for 90 minutes or whatever. Like I
got to be doing something.
I like to do something. Everything motivates me. I want to do a lot before I die.
Well, it sounds like you accomplished a lot so far. That's for damn sure.
I'm not finished. I'm not finished.
Is there any tricks that you need or use to stay focused and productive? Or I'm going to guess it just comes naturally.
No, there's no tricks because I just want to do it. I don't know what else to do. What do you do with your time if you're not doing?
Do you ever burn out?
I burn out from travel, but working doesn't burn me out. I do the concert photography for Fallsview Casino. So a lot of times I drive there and back in a night. So it's
after the concert.
It'll be 6 hours of driving. I'll get up at 6 in the morning, make my kids lunch, get them on the bus, and then I'll come here and teach. And I'll teach 2 classes, so there's 6 hours of teaching. I'll get back in my car, drive to Niagara Falls, shoot another show, come back again. I don't do this every day, but I do it almost every week. I'll burn out just from the travel part, but I don't burn out from the work part.
How do you handle burnout?
sleep, but I don't sleep enough.
Yeah.
There's not enough hours in the day. I want to lobby the government to make the day 26 hours, maybe give us 8 days a week. I'm like a shark. As soon as I stop, man, I just sink.
Yeah. How important is work-life balance?
It never was important before.
My follow-up that you can lead right into is it possible?
Okay, here's what it is.
Yeah.
Pre-kids, there was no work-life balance.
Yeah.
It was just work.
Yeah. But
work was life. I mean, I got to say this again, but working in the music industry, why do you need a life? That is the life.
You make friends years ago too, so that, yeah.
And if I wasn't shooting a gig, I was going to a gig.
Yeah.
And if I wasn't going to a gig, then I was preparing to travel to go see a band somewhere else, How I find work-life balance now is, for example, when I go to Niagara, I don't drive home all the time. Yeah. Sometimes I get a hotel room. I'll work the whole day the next day in the hotel room. And I'm not exaggerating.
Yeah.
Like, I won't do anything but work. And the reason for that is because when I'm with my kids, I'm putting it over here and I'm not thinking about it.
Yep.
Because I spend all that time away from them working.
Is there anything that keeps you up at night?
Occasionally stress if I'm worried about something. If I have a big shoot the next day, it used to be worse. Yeah. I used to be awake for 2 weeks. Like, when I think back at, the Tragically Hip and Violet Light, I was kind of losing it a bit. Like, I was younger and I was so worried. I used to worry about whenever it was a huge budget, I'd really worry about making sure that the client was getting their money's worth. But nowadays, no, just, maybe I worry about making sure that now it's important to me that students get their money's worth and their time's worth. Yeah. I take that really seriously. I take the responsibility of being a teacher really seriously. I don't want to waste anyone's time or anyone's money because I know how important that is.
For sure.
So maybe I worry about things like that. But I think nowadays I'm so tired. By the time I get to bed, I'm
just done. Yeah.
And then the alarm goes off. Oh, here we go again.
How do you define success?
I think, and again, it's not about money, but being able to pay your bills from work that you enjoy. Yeah. That's successful.
That's a damn good way to define it. Yeah.
So when the hydro bill comes in, and I have a check here from a client, that's pretty successful.
Yeah. What's the most important skill you think somebody needs to be successful?
Motivation.
Motivation.
Drive. Yeah, I used to say this stupid joke, and I don't say it anymore because I think it started annoying people, but when you go into this program, on the first day I used to be like, put your couch on Kijiji because you're never sitting on your couch anymore. You don't need your couch because if you sit on your couch, you're not going to do well in school and you're not going to do well trying to find work. I don't say that anymore because it just sounded too pompous, I guess, but the fact is, motivation. Yeah. Motivation, drive. You can go work somewhere else and you just do your 9 to 5.
Yep.
Lots of people do that, and I think it's great. It doesn't work for me, but if you want to be self-employed, you got to have motivation.
No doubt.
And it's a seriously competitive field, photography.
For sure.
There's colleges all across the country. Yeah. So they're producing students every year. There's a lot of good photographers that come out of school. I see them here, so there has to be at the other schools. Sure, you can have 1, 2, 3 great
100%.
Designs or 1, 2, 3 great photographs, but how do we know that just wasn't a good day for you? You got to maintain this consistency. And you don't have to be the very best, but you need to be good and consistent.
Consistent, yeah.
And you know it in your field, and I know it in mine.
100%. Like when we hire, we don't even look at, I don't care what their diploma look like or what grades they got. I don't even, 9 times out of 10, I don't even look at the resume. I just look at the work. Yeah. Let the work speak for itself, right?
Work speaks for itself, and consistent work.
Exactly. What is, and this one might be tough for you, the one defining moment where you knew you made it, that you could, I achieved success?
There's a number of gigs, a number of, I went to Ireland and I photographed U2 at Slane Castle. And I remember looking back and there's 80, 90,000 people behind me. And, the hair standing people now thinking about it. I had already photographed U2 a couple times, but going to Ireland and shooting there, and that seemed pretty cool. So I've shot a lot of big shows like that since then that kind of feel cool. Again, it's not about money, but when I bought my first house, I didn't have any other job. I bought it with the money I was making from rock and roll photography. Yeah. So that seemed pretty cool. Yeah. Building this program. Yeah. That was huge.
Like you say, with legacy and with putting the skills that you've built to work, right? Yeah.
Yeah, like that might be the career defining pinnacle. Yeah. I've photographed a lot of great shows, But that was a big, big thing.
Yeah.
A lot of the work I did with the Tragically Hip was really important to me. I'd done a few shoots with Gord Downey. Gord and I went out to the Toronto Island together and did a shoot and spent the day together. A lot of great things came out of that relationship. I got, Nickelback, I know they take a bit of heat, which is kind of silly, but great guys. They have an album called All the Right Reasons, sold 19 million copies.
Wow.
Those are my photographs in there.
Oh, yeah?
So at least 19 million people
have
seen those photographs. Their new album, Feed the Machine, sold them on the idea, and my shot's in their album, and it's on T-shirts. And I did the pre-production for it right here in the studio.
Oh, yeah?
I went down to Las Vegas a couple months ago to shoot Nickelback, and I went into the Hard Rock Hotel, and every single staff person had a T-shirt, a Nickelback T-shirt on. Said staff on the back and had my shot on the front.
That's cool.
So I was running around like, I want to buy this shirt, and nobody would give it to me. And I'm like, I'm the guy that took the photograph. And I don't think anyone believed me. They just saw some joker in the hotel. I'm like, no, I'm the one that made it. I couldn't buy a shirt. I complained about it on my social media, and finally someone came forward and said, hey, we can get you a shirt. That's cool. I don't think anyone was believing me. I just looked like some other person.
What's one of the biggest lessons you had to learn along the way?
Playing the game a bit. And I don't mean like lying or being someone you're not, but despite me rambling right now, I'm a real introvert. And I used to be worse. Okay. Like a terrible introvert. Yeah. Incredibly shy, to the point where I was scared to talk to people that I didn't know.
That's probably the most shocking piece of this entire interview.
Yeah, it's true. And I still am a real introvert.
No kidding.
And in the beginning, I really had to learn that you have to go in and look people in the eye and shake their hand and talk to them and ask questions about people and engage them. I didn't do that in the beginning. And I was talking about this shoot with Slash. I'll tell you a really quick story. That day, I was worked up. Slash, I love Slash, I love Guns N' Roses. I photographed the band in concert, but I'd never done a big shoot with Slash before. So anyway, I went in there. It was in his hotel room. He had a bottle of Jack Daniels over here, but I was shaking like this. I was so scared, and I didn't say anything. I had all these questions in my head. And then Slash said, do you want a shot of Jack Daniels? And I said, no, I don't drink on the job. That's okay, thanks. And I went back to work. And my assistant came up, whispered in my ear. He's like, I think you should have a drink because you are shaking so much and you're not talking. Yeah. I never did take the drink, but I probably should have because it'd be a way better story. Oh, yeah, a shot of Jack Daniels and stuff. But back then, it didn't matter. I remember shooting 54-40, good Canadian guys. Never said a word to them because I was so scared that I was going to say the wrong thing. I think the lesson was go in and be you, because I can sit and talk one-on-one. Sure. I can go talk to my buddies. Yeah. And I think let them love you for who you are or not love you for who you are. Yeah. As long as you're you just kind of go with it.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah. So yes, I still am an introvert. Despite.
Are there any opportunities along the way that you missed and maybe wish you took advantage of? Maybe doing a shot with Slash, that might be the answer to that one.
Yeah, I should have done that shot of Jack Daniels, a way better story. Yeah. I never photographed Prince, and I never photographed Michael Jackson, and I really wish I would have photographed them both. I saw Prince in concert, but I never shot it. I actually went to the Prince show with the guys from Nickelback, and they gave us side stage seats. Another great story. Tell you some other day. But I never photographed Prince, and I regret it because that guy is a monster. He's incredible. It's not music I listen to all the time, but when I saw him perform, he's
an icon.
Easily one of the best performers. And same with Michael Jackson. Yeah. Not music I really throw on at home, but I really wish I would have photographed him. So those are some opportunities that I kind of missed.
What's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
I guess going back to what my dad said, go back to school. I think a formal education is important. We get some students, or I talk to other people, and they say, I can go on YouTube and learn. But the thing about YouTube and learning probably anything, but specifically photography, is you don't get feedback. Yeah. So no one's telling you what you did right, what you did wrong, how you can improve it. My dad was always keen on formal education, and I still believe that to ring true. So that's probably the best piece of advice.
What's the secret to achieving long-term success instead of the fly-by-nighters?
Those 3 Ps again. Patience, persistence, and perseverance. Always treating every job like it's important to you. It doesn't matter if it's Slash, it doesn't matter if it's the head of security at Fallsview, I still put everything into it.
Yeah.
Treating everything like it's important.
Yeah.
Don't make anybody that's paying you less or they're not a massive star feel any less. Everybody should feel like a rock star when they stand in front of the camera, right?
Is there a photographer or person out there that you admire?
A couple weeks ago, I met one of the guys. You know, I don't want to say I have a hero because hero is a strange word, but there's a photographer. His name's Mick Rock. He did the cover of Lou Reed Transformer. He photographed Iggy Pop and Debbie Harry and the Ramones, all these guys in the 70s. Oh, yeah. So I always loved his work. Bob Gruen is probably the photographer that I looked up to the most when I was a kid. Bob Gruen, you might, even if you don't know his name, you know his shots. He did the cover of Kiss Destroyer, where they're standing there on the street corner in black and white. I wasn't even a huge Kiss fan as a kid, but I always loved that picture. Yeah. I look at a lot of career bands, and I look up to them as well, because I think, how did they manage to work in a creative environment and maintain it all the way through? Yeah. You look at guys, you know, like Pink Floyd or Led Zeppelin folded because John Bonham died, but they put out 10 years of consistent work. How do you maintain this consistency? So I do look at a lot of rock bands. I look at U2. Yeah. They just put out a new record again.
So more on the creative level, you kind of think of that, or on the relationship level? Like that
all
goes to say something, okay.
How do you maintain this relationship with an audience that's ongoing? Yeah. The Rolling Stones are in their 51st year or something now. Like how do you, I know money is part of the drive there, but they put out new records all the time, and what's this drive for wanting to put out creative work consistently? So I look at all of that stuff, and that gives me motivation, and it's something that I look up to, not just photographers, I look at musicians as well.
Where do you see yourself in 5 or 10 years?
Asleep.
That'll be the time you shut her down, eh?
I probably see myself still teaching.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny because I didn't want to teach. I never even thought about teaching. I never even considered it, but I like it now. I do like this idea of giving back. I like sharing the knowledge. A friend of mine, Jamie Patton, used to tell me all the time, there's no secrets, Richard. He's a really great photographer, and I always go, wow, how did you do that? He's like, there's no secrets, and he would tell me. And I do still believe that. You know, you want to know how I made a photograph? I'll tell you. Yeah. I tell stories all the time in class. I use my own photographs. The way I teach in the program and the way we hire teachers is it's kind of a funny saying, we practice what we teach, not we practice what we preach, because anybody can stand in front of the classroom and go, an f-stop is this, a shutter speed's this. But if I can come into the class and go, yesterday I shot at 2.8 because, and I can show them shots that I used, I think that helps students.
Especially in real time like that, really, right? Yeah.
And I think it's one of the things that separates our program from other programs. Yeah. All of our instructors are working photographers, and that's really important.
And even, is there many programs out there that have the sort of background and experience that a lot of, like you and
I'm sure lots of them do, but I'm not sure that everyone has every instructor. We won't hire an instructor if they're not experienced.
Cool.
That's part of our, I used to say you had to have 20 years experience, and my dean, when I told her that, she kind of laughed at me. She's like, Richard, you're gonna have a hard time finding people that have 20 years experience. Maybe you gotta lower it down, so now it's 10 years.
Yeah. Well, let's jump in the rapid fire then.
Rapid fire, okay.
Morning person or night hawk?
It's a terrible life for me because I'm both.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Do you read your news in the paper or device?
The news I read, typically, I have the apps for BBC, so I read the BBC News every day, several times. And I read The Guardian, which is another UK newspaper, and I read those both on my phone. But music, I like reading Rolling Stone, Mojo Magazine, and I like magazines for music because I like the big pictures. Yeah. So, sorry, both.
There you go. This is easy.
News I like on the phone. Music news I like in the magazine.
What's your favorite social media platform?
Instagram.
Yeah.
Can I expand on that a tiny bit?
Give her.
Right here in this room, 2 years ago, I was sitting with BC that you met, or you saw earlier, and his friend was here from Nigeria. And they're like, Richard, man, you got to get on Instagram. I'm like, what is Instagram? I honestly didn't know what it was. That was a video game or something. And they're like, no, you have this killer archive. You got to get on Instagram. So this was in 2016, just before the Tragically Hip did their final tour. I finally looked at Instagram, and I'm like, oh, it's kind of cool. So I posted a few shots from the tour. September 20th, 2016, by this point, I was sold on Instagram. I made kind of a deal with myself. I was going to post every single day for 1 year. That was my goal. September 20th, 2017 came around. I never missed a day. I posted every single day. To this day, I haven't missed a day.
How many followers?
Just under 4,000.
Wow.
But they're all hard-fought followers.
Yeah.
I intend on going every single day until New Year's. And I might even continue. I'm going to do 2 full years. Yeah. That's cool. Richard.Beland, if you want to check it out. But every single day I post a new music photograph that no one's ever seen before.
Cool.
So, sorry, long story. Instagram's my favorite.
City life or country living? Sounds like you got a taste of both.
Yeah, I love city life. I love the city.
Yeah.
I love subways. I love the hustle bustle. But I love country life now too.
Yeah.
When we first moved back to Kamlaki, we were outside, it was in the summertime, and my daughter said, "Daddy, what's that noise?" And I'm like, "What noise?" She goes, "That noise." It was crickets. She'd never heard crickets before, because we lived in Toronto.
Yeah.
I'm like, those are crickets.
Yeah. What's one thing that's on your bucket list? There can't be a lot left, is there?
The Great Pyramids.
Yeah?
Yeah. When I was in that 6 months in Europe, one of my goals was to go over to Morocco and drive across the top of Africa and go to the Great Pyramids.
Cool.
It never fit in with my schedule. But I do want to go to the Great Pyramids.
Dogs or cats?
I'm sorry.
Both.
Both. I don't have a dog. I never will have a dog because my life is too busy for a dog, and a dog needs a lot of love. I love dogs, but I could never have a dog. So I do have a cat. My cat's name is Boo Radley. And I've had this cat for 15 years. And he's the toughest cat, man. I've seen him take on 2 raccoons before.
Yeah.
Those raccoons, they were gone. So I love my cat.
Cool.
Yeah, but I like both.
Last one, clean or messy desk?
I live in organized chaos.
There you go. I think that's a
my
general
desk
consensus.
is messy, but I know where stuff is.
Yeah, good.
Both. Everything's both.
Straight across the board. It's easy. Thanks so much, Richard. This has been awesome. Your stories are amazing. Like I said, we could sit here all day. We might have to do a version 2 of this later on.
Thank you.
That was awesome.
Thanks for your time.